I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a shakeup at San Diego Unified. Trustee Marnie Foster stepping down after entering a guilty plea in court. We will have the details of the case.
It was very, very difficult to speak up, but it was the right thing to do.
The city of San Diego settles another harassment lawsuit connected to former Mayor Bob Filner. This one is the biggest settlement yet. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Embattled San Diego Unified School Board trustee Marnie Foster resigns her position and pleaded guilty to receiving financial gifts over the legal limit. Joining us with more from the newsroom in KPBS Newsroom, education reporter Matt Bowler.
Foster pleaded guilty this afternoon to receiving a gift in excess of $460. Reportedly, Foster used the money to send her son to theater camp in 2014. The school board approved hiring an independent investigator to look into Foster's actions last September. I spoke with school board president Michael McQuarrie shortly after news broke.
For me, it's been very, very important to be open to the public and to not draw conclusions from to not draw conclusions too quickly. Give everybody their due process and their day in court. It looks like Marnie has hers.
Foster's resignation is effective February 7th. McQuarrie says trustees want to put the Foster affair behind them and get back to educating students.
Well, for the board, we want to take a look at lessons learned and see where see if there's anything we could do and how we can approach and how we can move forward.
Foster was placed on 3 years probation, ordered to pay $3,487 in restitution and perform 120 hours of volunteer work. Now it's up to the school board to fill her vacant seat. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego has settled another harassment case involving former Mayor Bob Filner. The city will pay $667,000 to settle a suit by Filner's former executive assistant, Daniela Santos Hunter. This is the largest of the 4 settlements reached so far with women who said he harassed them. Santos Hunter said Filner said inappropriate things to her and made inappropriate contact and even locked her in his private kitchen.
It was very, very difficult to speak up, but it was the right thing to do. The right thing to do.
One of the lessons of the Filner year should be that there are no innocent bystanders when it comes to sexual harassment. It is illegal. Those in the inner circle of upper management around Mayor Filner who knew should not have sloughed it off. They should have reported it and taken steps to stop it.
And the city still faces 2 more lawsuits filed by women who say Filner harassed them. After former Mayor Bob Filner's sexual harassment scandal erupted in 2013, city leaders realized there was no way to remove a mayor from office. So they formed a committee to consider changes to the city's charter, including a process for removing elected officials. They waited to start that discussion for a year, but Council President Sherry Leitner says they will take it up tomorrow.
We wanted to build confidence in how we were doing things, so we did the things that we thought everyone could agree.
Any changes the committee wants to make will need to be approved by voters. A federal audit says the city of San Diego misused more than $1 million in disaster relief funds. The money was part of a relief package to deal with damage from floods and mudslides 5 years ago. The General Accounting Office says the state of California is partly to blame because state officials didn't inform the city about federal guidelines for using the money. City leaders say they'll take steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. And the month of December showed that most water agencies in the county fell short of the conservation targets set by the governor. Water savings for last month were only 18%, missing Governor Brown's order to reduce consumption by 25%. The city of San Diego fell short of its target. City residents saved 15.5%, just shy of the 16% requirement. And El Nino storms have drenched California this winter, but water regulators say reservoirs still remain low. State Water Board managers are debating new rules that will determine the guidelines for California's water conservation mandates. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson joins us with details.
California Water Board managers got conservation numbers they could live with last year, but their guidelines drew plenty of fire from around the state. The statewide target was to cut urban water use by 25%, but critics called the individual conservation targets arbitrary. Some water districts were required to use 36% less water than they did in 2013. Some districts only had to save 4%. Some felt the targets went too far, and some felt that they didn't go far enough. San Diego water officials wanted smaller targets so residents here could use that billion-dollar desalination plant. Regardless of what the state board does decide today, they will be revisiting the issue in May.
We don't know if it's going to keep raining and snowing through February and March, and we need to be cautious because we have just lived through 4 years of extreme drought, and without really significant amounts of precipitation, we're not going to completely get out of it.
When the Water Board reconvenes in May, they could ease conservation targets, tighten them, or leave them alone. Gomberg says the board could also eliminate the conservation mandates if there's enough rain and snow this winter season. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The state just released new numbers on the snowpack in the Sierra Nevada. It's now 130% of average for this time of year. The California Department of Water Resources says measurement a year ago at the same location was 129% of average. Then the snow stopped. The snowpack supplies about 30% of California's water. Paramedics and EMTs in San Diego will soon be getting a raise after the city council unanimously approved adding them to the city's living wage ordinance. Several council members said they were shocked last year when they learned that many first responders were earning close to minimum wage. The city's ambulance contractor AMR was under scrutiny last year for slow response times. It also had trouble attracting and retaining staff. Councilwoman Marty Emerald says many had to work overtime to pay their bills.
That's not only lousy for them, but these medical workers who are so fatigued out there could likely make mistakes too. So this is about public safety as much as it is about paying a fair and reasonable wage to people who are first responders and making a difference.
And the living wage ordinance covers city contractors in certain fields. The current living wage is more than $14 per hour, including health benefits. Top military generals say they believe all women should be made to register for the draft. Army General Mark Milley and Marine General Robert Neller said women should be included in the selective service requirement now that combat jobs are open to them. The generals told the Senate Armed Services Committee that it will take up to 3 years before the combat posts are fully integrated. Political leaders have been reluctant to give the draft requirement their endorsement. And turning to San Diego election news now, County Supervisor Dave Roberts is falling behind in fundraising for his re-election. That's according to the latest campaign disclosure documents. Roberts raised more than $275,000 in all of 2015, but most of it was in the first half of the year before it was rocked by an abuse of office scandal. Roberts is the only Democrat on the 5-member Board of Supervisors. His 2 Republican challengers are quickly catching up to him. Escondido Mayor Sam Abed raised more than $250,000 in 2015. Encinitas Mayor Kristen Gaspar entered the race later than the other 2 candidates. She raised just over $100,000 last year. The San Diego County Board of Supervisors has approved a measure that's designed to end homelessness among people with severe mental illness. From our North County Bureau, KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says the initiative is called Project One for All.
It's believed more than 1,500 homeless people in the county are suffering from a severe mental illness, such as schizophrenia. The county's new initiative aims to provide housing and an intense array of services to this population. County Supervisor Greg Cox says these people need a lot of help.
I've seen their faces, I've heard their stories. These are the people who have basically lost the struggle with behavioral health issues and are just about as down and out as human beings can possibly get.
The county has not said how much the new project will cost, but officials say the project's success will depend on the participation of local cities and housing agencies. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
More grief for Southern California gas. Attorney General Kamala Harris says she is adding her name to the list of parties suing the company over the massive natural gas leak in Porter Ranch. Harris today said the company violated several state laws and didn't report the leak until 3 days after its discovery in October. Harris says the leak caused a statewide public health and environmental emergency. Southern California Gas faces more than 24 lawsuits over the leak. President Barack Obama is setting a new standard for federal buildings to protect them from earthquakes. Today, he signed an executive order for new or renovated government buildings to follow the latest building codes with earthquake-resistant designs. The White House is also trying to make more progress with an early warning system for the West Coast to give people a head start to get to safety before an earthquake hits. And Someone at San Diego Mesa College has been diagnosed with tuberculosis. County health officials say that others may have been exposed between October 23rd and December 17th of last year. County and school officials are working to notify those who may have been exposed during those dates. The college is providing no-cost testing to students, faculty, and staff. The California Public Health Department is encouraging residents to take precautions when traveling to countries where the Zika virus is circulating. The World Health Organization has already declared a global emergency as the virus continues to spread in Latin America. A dozen counties in California have the mosquito species that carries the disease, but there are no reports of anyone contracting it in the states.
If Californians are planning to travel to Latin American or the Caribbean, they should pack repellent. It's extremely important to minimize the risk of being bitten by mosquitoes, and if an individual is pregnant or trying to become pregnant at this point in time, we actually recommend not traveling to Latin America or the Caribbean, particularly in those countries where we know Zika is circulating.
There is a list of countries where the Zika virus is spreading on the CDC website. New research shows it's possible to partially restore microbes to C-section babies who don't pick them up through their mother's birth canal. KPBS science reporter David Wagner spoke with a UC San Diego researcher who co-authored the new study and joins us now.
We may all be born naked, but we're not all born with the same coat of microbes, and that may have an impact on our long-term health. Population-wide data suggests that babies who pick up bacteria from mom's birth canal tend to have a lower risk of obesity, diabetes, and other conditions later in life. But C-section babies don't have to miss out on this early bacterial colonization. That's the takeaway from a new paper co-authored by UC San Diego's Rob Knight. For this study, Knight and his colleagues came up with a pretty simple way of transferring vaginal microbes to a handful of C-section babies.
And so essentially what we did is we got some surgical gauze and we put it in the birth canal of the mothers before the C-section was performed.
Rubbing that bacteria-soaked gauze on the C-section babies improved their microbial diversity at birth. Even a month later, their bodies contained microbial communities comparable to babies born vaginally. Knight says he and his wife decided to do a similar bacterial transfer when their own daughter was born in an unplanned C-section.
As parents, we decided to do what we could in terms of transferring the microbes that our daughter would have been born with anyway to her immediately after she was born.
Now, researchers will still need to study many more babies for longer periods of time to know if bacterial transfers like this can actually improve the long-term health of people born via C-section. David Wagner, KPBS News.
A temporary shelter is now up and running at an Air Force base in New Mexico, housing hundreds of minors who fled Central America for the U.S. The Department of Health and Human Services has released video from inside the new shelter. Samantha Sonner reports from our Fronteras partner, KRWG, in Las Cruces.
Up to 250 children are currently housed at Holloman Air Force Base. The Office of Refugee Resettlement says the facility has the capacity to house up to 700 children. The children are mainly from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and range from 13 to 17 years of age. According to a spokesman for Health and Human Services, the children will stay at the temporary facility for an average of about 32 days before they can be reunified with a parent or sponsor already in the United States. And most of the children here already have a sponsor in mind. While at Holloman, the children are keeping busy on a strict schedule with recreational and educational activities. A spokesman says the children's favorite activities include playing dominoes, soccer, and basketball, as well as weaving friendship bracelets. Children were given 5 changes of clothes and a hygiene kit when they arrived at the facility and eat 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. In 2014, it cost about $500 per child per day to operate this kind of temporary facility. But a cost estimate for the Holloman facility was not immediately available. At Holloman Air Force Base, I'm Samantha Sonner.
It looks like San Diego will have a dry week ahead with plenty of sun. KPBS weather reporter Molly Cochran takes a look at the warming trend hitting the county this week.
Well, hopefully everyone's had a great second day of the work week across San Diego County. We still have some unsettled weather to talk about taking place across the northern and central half of the state, impacting San Francisco on north as far as the low cloud ceilings are concerned. But as we take a look at San Diego County, it's been rather quiet over the past 6 hours and will continue to be quiet over the next coming days. So really not too much to report on radar and satellite. It's going to be dry skies from here on out until the later half of the week. So for tonight, mainly clear skies across the region. But one thing you'll probably notice, take a look at these temperatures. We're in the 30s, 40s, even into the teens for Mount Laguna. So we still have some chilly air in place for the rest of tonight. Temperatures in San Diego for this time of year, overnight hours should be right around the 50 mark. So we're about 5 below for tonight. Good enough for the lighter jacket or the long sleeves for the remainder of the evening hours. But definitely, if you're a fan of the warmth, you're in luck over the next couple of days. A warming trend going to be taking place across Southern California. The jet stream lifts farther off to the north. This is what we like to call a ridge-type pattern, and when this happens, we can pretty much bank on some warmer air and also some dryness coming in, and we have both of those things sticking around in San Diego over the next coming days. Meanwhile, still looking at those disturbances to come into the northern half of the state, impacting mainly to the north of San Francisco, near Medford as well. Some of the low cloud ceilings could get into San Francisco and prompt a few flight delays, so something to keep in mind into the middle half of the week. So here's a look across the immediate coastline. Notice that gradual warm up as we head into Friday. Temperatures actually getting into the 70s, and we're not going to be stopping there. By Sunday, 75 for a high, plenty of bright sunshine, just beautiful weather over the next coming days. Definitely have checked out some of those models, and it looks like the dry air really going to be hanging on into the later half of the week and into the early half of next week as well. Here's a look across the interior section, still dealing with that chilly air in place for Wednesday, and then gradually starting to see things heat up. 71 by Friday with plenty of bright sunshine. Temperatures more typical for this time of year, also into the overnight hours with lows returning into the lower 50s. Across the mountainous regions, we'll be at 42 for Wednesday. Still pretty chilly. Overnight low 22, so we'll need that extra layer for sure. Mostly sunny skies for Thursday at 47, getting into the mid 50s for the start of the weekend with plenty of bright sunshine. The desertous regions also looking dry, bright, and going to be expecting that warm up as well. Molly Cochran, KPBS News.
And San Diego and the Chargers have a lot of work to do to try to build a new stadium here. In the meantime, the AP's Terry Che gives us a look at all the bells and whistles at the venue for Super Bowl 50.
When the Broncos play the Panthers on Super Bowl Sunday, they'll compete in a stadium that showcases the latest in high-tech, eco-friendly design. Located in the heart of Silicon Valley, Levi Stadium opened less than 2 years ago as the new home of the San Francisco 49ers.
With the building sitting in Silicon Valley, obviously there was a high expectation relative to the technology aspects and what people could do when they were there as part of the fan experience.
The stadium has a robust Wi-Fi network and a mobile app that lets fans order food from their seats, watch replays, and find the least crowded restrooms. The stadium has huge video screens and a variety of dining options, both casual and upscale. Its environmentally conscious design features a green roof of native plants and nearly 20,000 square feet of solar panels.
I absolutely love watching people experience the building for the first time, explore it, be excited.
Fans have great memories of Candlestick Park, where the Niners had 5 championship seasons, but most are ready to leave the aging stadium.
It was an old building, and it was time for us to have a new one. We really deserve a new stadium, and we're thrilled to be part of this one.
But Levi Stadium has generated some criticism. Fans on the east side complain about sitting directly in the hot sun, and there were problems with loose, slippery turf. But the sun shouldn't be a big issue in February, and the NFL has installed fresh grass for the big game.
We feel good. I mean, everything for the field and otherwise, we feel are right on track for Super Bowl.
A Super Bowl that will let fans experience the next generation of stadium design. Terry Che, Associated Press, Santa Clara, California.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next News Hour, we dive into the Iowa results and look ahead as the race for the White House turns its focus to New Hampshire. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
The first ever triathlon was held in San Diego more than 40 years ago. It was created by 2 San Diegans who thought it would be a fun, one-time event. One of those men, Jack Johnstone, died last week at the age of 80 after battling Alzheimer's. We bring you KPBS reporter Claire Tregeser's 2014 story on Johnstone and his idea for a sport that combines swimming, biking, and running.
40 years ago, San Diegans Jack Johnstone and Don Shanahan had a wacky idea.
We had a number of events in town, too, were fairly popular, run swims. So I got to thinking of, well, it'd be really fun to put a bike on the back end of this.
Shanahan is now 72. He and Johnstone were recreational runners.
Jack was a member of the track club. He called up, wanted to put on a swim run, and they said, well, Shanahan has this crazy idea. Why don't you talk to him? So Jack called me, and we put it on.
They held their triathlon in Mission Bay, but their course was a bit different from modern triathlons. Instead of starting with a swim, the 46 participants first ran a 3-mile loop towards SeaWorld, then biked twice around Fiesta Island.
They came off the bikes, into the dirt, took off your shoes, ran into the water, swam over to the island behind us, ran over that island, swam to the mainland.
They ran in bare feet and did one last swim up to the entrance of Fiesta Island, then crawled up a steep dirt bank to finish.
So you had to crawl to the finish line no matter how good you were.
Many weren't good swimmers, so Johnstone recruited his 13-year-old son to float on his surfboard and act as a lifeguard. His wife, Betty Johnstone, now 75, was also there that day.
I was in charge of shoes, so I went over to where they finished their run and started the first swim, and everybody just threw their shoes in a pile, and I took all these kind of sweaty shoes and put them in big trash bags and then drove back to the finish line and just dumped them in a pile.
Here the story takes a sad turn. Jack Johnstone, now 79, has Alzheimer's and is in assisted living. Betty sees him every day but says he doesn't always remember starting the first triathlon.
He doesn't talk too much anymore, so I'm not really sure how much he remembers or how much he knows.
She remembers when Jack first told her about the triathlon idea.
And I thought it was a crazy idea, and he never thought it would go anywhere. He just thought it'd be a one-time fun event.
Instead, the idea spread. More races popped up, and their popularity grew. The triathlon became an Olympic sport in 2000, and last year 2.3 million people finished triathlons in the United States.
It was all on Fiesta Island, and then when we would swim, it'd be like across here and here and here.
But original participants like Tom Rothar, now 72, say they didn't know then how big the sport would become.
Over the years, as the triathlon was developing, I kind of remembered vaguely back in the back of my mind that I'd been in the first one, but it was not a big deal to me.
Rothar misses those early, simpler days.
You go to a triathlon now and you look at these high-tech, very, very expensive bikes. Most of us who were in that race were just pulling out our beach cruisers or whatever we could find.
The equipment is fancier, and races can now cost $100 or more to enter, instead of the $1 Shanahan and Johnstone charged. But people of all abilities compete, and Shanahan is glad he helped create something that promotes exercise.
You could be first or 501st. You know, you're still getting the workout, you're still competitive, and you're getting the health benefits. So, you know, and quite frankly, unless you're in the first 5, the only people who really care what your time was is you.
This past September, some of the original participants and their children competed in a 40th anniversary triathlon. Shanahan was there and got to watch people enjoy the sport he'd helped create, but never profited from.
People have said, why haven't you trademarked it? And it didn't even occur to me, because you've got events that are a run bike that haven't exploded. You've got run swim that really haven't exploded. And this exploded. So we didn't expect it. And quite frankly, I'm happy it did. I'm excited that it did, but that I didn't make any money on it, it's not that big a deal to me. It really isn't.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And Jack Johnstone, passed away last Thursday at the age of 80. And you can find more on that story and other stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening. Good night.